If you clicked on a video called Don't Sell Your XRP Until This, then you already know that this is not going to be a casual price update. You've clicked because somewhere in the back of your mind, you are wondering if you are about to sell too early, or maybe hold too long, or completely miss something that really matters for XRP. You did not click a hype video here. You've clicked on a warning for XRP holders who are thinking about selling before they understand what is really going on. And if the title made you pause for a second, that is exactly why you need to hear this before you sell a single token. Because here is the uncomfortable truth. The biggest risk for most XRP holders right now is not that XRP never moves. It is that it moves hard. It runs, it shocks people, and they sell far too early. Then they spend the rest of their kind of super cycle watching from the sidelines, angry at themselves, wondering why they did not just wait a little bit longer. So, in this video, I want to walk you through exactly what I found when I went deep on the XRP supercycle idea. I want you to see why some smart analysts are really talking about a realistic height around $48. I want you to see why $10 is probably the first big emotional trap. And most of all, I want you to be able to decide calmly what you are actually going to do with your XRP before things get too crazy. Now, I am not here to sell you a dream. I am here to walk you through a bit of a process, a personal investigation. Because when I first heard that people are throwing around numbers like $40, $50, I rolled my eyes. But then I looked at the data. I looked at the structure. I looked at this one simple pattern that has been guiding XRP for years. And in my view, it has completely changed. I am going to show you the logic behind the supercycle thesis. I'm going to walk you through the parallel channel that has been framing XRP since 2017. I'm going to talk about the brutal drawdowns, the 3-month collapse, and the reasons people feel exhausted right now. And then we are going to talk about why the real danger is checking out right before the game really starts. So, if you are holding XRP, thinking about selling, or just feeling a little bit tired, stay with me here, because by the end of this video, you will not just have a price target to aim for, you will also have a plan. Let us start with where we are right now. So if you are watching this around the 16th of December 2025, you have just lived through a pretty rough stretch as an XRP holder. The token is nowhere near the levels that people were shouting about earlier in the year. Instead of parabolic highs, we have seen red days, choppy sideways action, and move after move that just does not live up to the hype. And that does something to your head, right? At first, you are excited, then you are patient, then you are frustrated. Then you start asking the harder questions. What if this thing never does what people say that it will do? What if I am sat here holding this bag while everything else runs without me? On top of that, you hear all of the reasons that it should have pumped already. The legal case took too long. The exchange-traded funds were late. The big clarity law for crypto moved slower than anyone had hoped. Every delay stacks on top of the last one. After a while, it feels like XRP is always one step behind where it should actually be. So, it is very tempting to say, you know what, I am done. I will sell. I will rotate into something else. And I will stop thinking about this. And that is exactly the moment that worries me for a lot of XRP holders right now. Because while all of that emotion is building up, something very different is actually playing out in the charts. Now, let me explain that. There is a pattern that one analyst, known as the block bull, has been focusing on, and it is a simple parallel channel that goes all the way back to 2017. So think of it like two rising lines on the chart that form a kind of track then. For years, XRP's price has moved up and down inside this track. Back in 2017, while XRP was still trading for fractions of a cent, it started climbing up towards the top of that channel. And every time that it kissed that upper line, it found support and moved higher. It rode that structure all the way into a massive peak around $3.31 in early 2017. Then, the bear market hit. The whole market bled out. XRP fell back inside the channel. It bounced around, and in 2022, during the worst of the bear market and those huge blow-ups, it finally lost the lower line of that channel. It had slipped underneath the track. This is where things have been getting interesting, because once you fall out of that structure, at least like that, you do not just teleport back in. You have to fight your way back, and that is what XRP has been trying to do. In late 2024 and into 2025, XRP pushed up sharply. It ran back towards that old lower line of the channel. But now that line, which used to be support, has turned into resistance. The price hits it, it gets smacked down, and it tries again, and it struggles. If you look at it over a long time frame, it looks like XRP is pressing its face against a glass ceiling. Now, it knows that if it can get back inside that channel, then the whole upper half of the track opens up once again. That is where the bulls, at least the block bulls $48 number, actually comes from. It's not from wild guesses, from projecting the same rising channel towards, at least forwards in time. No, not all. If you look at it over a long time frame, it looks like XRP is pressing its face against a glass ceiling. It knows that if it can get back inside that channel, the whole upper half of that track opens up again. Now that is where the block bulls $48 number comes from. It's not from wild guessing, from projecting that same rising channel forwards in time. Now, here is the key idea. He calls $48 the realistic height in a super cycle. Basically, if XRP can fight its way back inside that channel, and if the market does deliver something more powerful than a normal bull run, then the upper line of that structure sits around $48 area. Does that mean that XRP will go there? No. Does it mean that you should plan your life around that magical number? Absolutely not. But it does give you a bit of a framework, a map, not of what must happen, but what could happen if things line up. So let us pause and make this personal then, because right now XRP is only a couple of dollars. For a lot of people, even $10 feels pretty crazy, yet here we are talking about numbers way above that. For somewhere between where we are right now and that $48 line, there is a huge emotional battleground. And that is why the title of this video matters so much. Do not sell XRP until you understand what that battlefield looks like. Let me walk you through how most people behave in a run like this. The first stage is boredom. That is where many people are right now. The price action is ugly, narratives feel tired, social media is quieter, and people say things like, "I am over this, nothing is happening." The second stage is doubt. A small move higher starts, maybe XRP jumps from $2 to $3. People do not trust it. They say, yeah, we've seen this move before, it will roll over. The third stage, that's hope, right? The move keeps on going, $5, $6. Now people start to feel it. They open up their portfolios a lot more. They start imagining what their stack is worth at $10. The fourth stage, relief, cash out, right? Around $8 to $10, a huge wave of holders finally get their money back or hit that magical number that they've had in their head, and they sell. They do not really have a plan beyond that. All they know is that this is the moment that they promised themselves that they would exit. And that is where I think many XRP holders are most at risk. This is because if we really do get a super cycle, $10 might not be the destination at all. It might just be the first major speed bump on the way to something much bigger. And if you are not clear about how much or what much bigger even means for you, right? Your emotions will make that decision for you. And that is where I think most XRP holders are at risk. This is because if we really do get a super cycle, $10 might not be the destination. It might just be the first major speed bump on the way to something much bigger. And if you are not clear about what much bigger even means for you, then your emotions will make that decision for you. So, I want to ask you a simple question. If XRP actually did move to $48 at some point in the future, and you had already sold your entire stack at, let's say, $8, how would you feel? Would you be proud that you took profits? Or would you feel sick that you stepped off the train far too early? Really think about that, because your answer tells you a lot about what kind of plan that you need. Now, to be clear, I am not saying that you should hold everything forever. I am not saying that you should gamble on a perfect top. That is just fantasy. What I am saying, though, is this. The only thing worse than never seeing a big move is watching it happen from the sidelines because you cashed out with no strategy. So, how do you avoid that? Well, you turn this form of guesswork into a bit of a structured plan. Now, let me share how I think about it as a personal investigation and not as advice. Step 1. Accept that you will not sell the exact top. Say that out loud. I am not going to sell the exact top. And that is fine, because the moment that you accept that, you stop chasing perfect timing. You start thinking in ranges. Step 2. Choose levels where you will scale out gradually instead of all at once. For example, you might decide to sell a small part of your stack around $6, maybe a bit more at around $10, another slice at $15 or $20. Then keep a final moon bag that you will, only touch if the price goes into extreme territory. Step 3. Make peace with those levels now, when you are calm, right? Not later when the chart is vertical and social media is screaming at you. Because here is the trap. When XRP is at $2, $10 sounds pretty wild, right? When it is at $10, $10 will feel small and $20 will feel like a realistic number. Our brains move the goalposts. So if you do not set your levels ahead of time, you will always feel like you are just one more candle away from the real move. Now, let us connect this back to the $48 supercycle idea then. Because what the block bull is saying is not that XRP will 100% hit $48. No. He is saying, though, is that if XRP manages to reclaim that long-term channel, And if we get that kind of stretched out bull run that breaks all of the usual expectations, then the upper bound of that structure sits around that level. In other words, that is what a full-blown supercycle could look like on a chart. But life does not happen on a clean chart, does it? Somewhere along that path, there will be a huge correction, scary headlines, and big, ugly red candles. There will be moments when and where, I guess, you are up 4 or 5 times on your position, and you give half of that back in a violent pullback, right? That is what a real supercycle feels like from the inside. So, when someone says, do not sell XRP until this, what they are really saying is, do not make permanent decisions based on temporary feelings. Right now, the temporary feeling is exhaustion. Later, it will feel like greed. After that, it might be fear. Your job is not to fight those feelings. Your job is to build a simple rule set that stands above them. Let us make this even more practical. Ask yourself 3 questions. The first one, what is the absolute lowest price at which you would be angry at yourself for selling everything? For some people, that might be under $5. For others, it might be under $10, right? Whatever that number is, write it down. That is your regret floor. Second, what is the first price that would genuinely change your life in a meaningful way, even if XRP never went higher? Maybe that is $6. Maybe that is $12. Maybe it is $20, right? That is your freedom trigger. Third, how much XRP are you willing to keep as a moonbag that you will hold through insanity, right? Not because, it will run to $48, but because you want exposure if the supercycle really does go crazy. Once you have those 3 pieces put together, you actually can build a very simple structure. Do not sell everything below your regret floor. Take some meaningful profit at your freedom trigger. Keep your moonbag for everything else above that, with no promises and no expectations. Now, all of this only matters if you can actually hold on to your assets safely and stay in the game. So, let me talk about 3 practical pieces that I use myself. First up, we have security. Now, if you are serious about holding XRP through a potential supercycle, then you need to think very carefully about where that XRP lives. Keeping a large stack on a centralized exchange long-term is a pretty huge risk. Exchanges can get hacked. They can freeze withdrawals, and they can go offline at the worst possible moment. That is why I use a hardware wallet for long-term holds, something like a ledger device that keeps your private keys offline, away from the internet and under your control. Now, that does not make you invincible, of course. You still need to use it correctly, but it does shift the risk away from third parties and back into your hands. Second is education. One of the best things that you can do is, at least in this quiet, rather frustrating phase, is to upgrade your knowledge. Understand how markets move. Learn how to read basic structures. Get a grip on your own emotions as an investor. Now, that is exactly why we built our free educational Discord community. It is a place where you can ask questions, you can learn the basics, and you can hear how others, at least other people, are thinking through all of these same problems without having to pay for some shiny new course. Third is infrastructure. Now, I like to have multiple exchanges tested and ready before a bull market hits. I want to have a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C, because we have all seen what happens when volumes explode. Exchanges, they get crashed, right? Deposits, they get stuck, and people cannot log in just when they want to sell or to move funds. Now, that brings me to a very specific opportunity that I have right now for XRP holders, because I have partnered up with Kraken to run a limited time promotion. If you are new to Kraken, you can sign up using the link that's in the description down below or over on our website. Get your account verified, and then when you trade $100 or more of any non-stablecoin crypto within 30 days of opening your account, you will receive $25 worth of XRP credited to your account. So, you are doing something that you probably need to do anyway, right? Which is testing and setting up another exchange ahead of time, or at least ahead of a bullish market. And at the same time, you are getting a little bit extra XRP for doing it. Now, it is a neat little way to grow your stack without changing your core strategy. So if you want the exact details and the full terms and conditions, they are all laid out for you down in the description below. It's important that you do pay attention to the terms and conditions though. This is a promotion that's been brought to you by Kraken. It is not affiliated with YouTube or Cheeky Crypto in any way, and there are certain jurisdictions around the world that are not eligible. So do pay attention to the full terms and conditions linked in the description. Okay, so before I go any further, let me just say this very clearly. Now, this might shock you, but I'm not a financial advisor, and nothing in this video is financial advice. Cryptocurrencies are highly volatile, and you could lose all of the money that you invest. You should always do your own research and consult a qualified professional. After all, your investments are entirely your responsibility, and you should know that nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to investing. Neither I, this channel, nor YouTube are liable for any losses, and this video is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Now, alright, I'm glad that we said that. We had to say it, you know that by now. Let's get back though to you guys and your XRP. I want you to imagine two different futures then. And the first future is one where you got worn down by this chop. You sell somewhere between now and, let's say, $5 because you're tired of waiting. The market finally wakes up. XRP run past $10. Then maybe it tags $20. Maybe it goes all the way up to that upper channel line in the $40 range. And you're out. You made somewhere, and something, I guess, in the lower ranges, but you know that you left life-changing gains on the table. You keep replaying that choice over and over and over. In the second future, you do not worship the supercycle. You do not count on $48, but you also do not let boredom kick you out. Instead, you sit down and you build your levels. You decide how much you will sell at different stages. You move your long-term stack into secure storage, and you set up your exchanges, maybe grab that Kraken promotion, and you wait. In that second path, you might still not catch the absolute top. You might not time every move perfectly either, but you are in the game when it matters. You are not just watching from the outside. Now, the difference between those two futures is not just intelligence. It is not your charting skills. It is whether you let short-term feelings control your long-term decisions. So let me just slow this down for a moment and really press on one idea. Possibility is not the same as probability, right? A $48 XRP is possible inside a supercycle framework. The structure kind of allows for it. The channel projection also allows for it. But that does not mean that it is the most likely outcome. Most of the time, markets fall short of the most extreme targets. Liquidity can dry up sooner than people actually expect. Sentiment flips faster than it seems it should, and you get kind of front run by larger players who have been planning their exits for months ahead of time. Now, that is why I think it is a dangerous game to build your entire mindset around one heroic number. Instead, use that number as a way to stretch your imagination. Ask yourself, if the top of this move sat somewhere between, let's say, $20 and $48, how would you actually behave on the way there? Right? Where would you be happy to lock in real gains? Where would I be willing to maybe let the rest ride? Because here is the twist. The decision not to sell too early and the decision not to hold forever are the same decision. They both require you to think about your future self, right? The version of you that looks back and either says, I made peace with my plan, or I let my feelings run the show. And this is where most people quietly sabotage themselves. They treat every new candle as fresh information that needs a fresh reaction. They jump from one influencer to another, and they change their plan 10 times in a single month. By the time the real move comes, they are absolutely exhausted. They are completely confused, and to be honest, they're emotionally spent. You can do this very differently. You can say, I am going to build a simple framework once. I am going to review it from time to time, but I am not going to chase every mood swing. I will take profits at my levels. I will protect my downside. I will give myself a chance at the upside, and I will not let every headline push me around. That is what not selling until this really looks like. It is not holding forever. It is holding your plan. So let me leave you with a few simple, concrete actions then. After this video, sit down with a notepad or a notes app and write 3 numbers: your regret floor, your freedom trigger, and your I will never sell this moonbag percentages. Right now, it does not have to be perfect. You can adjust it later if you need to, but get it out of your head and onto a page. Next, check where your XRP is actually held. If everything is on one exchange, that is a warning sign. Consider moving long-term holdings to a hardware wallet like a ledger device and keep only trading capital on exchanges. Then make sure that you have at least 2 exchanges set up and tested. If you want to use the Kraken offer that I mentioned earlier, you can check one of those boxes and add it to a little bit of extra XRP to your stack at the same time. Just remember though that a promotion is not a reason to overtrade. It is simply a tool, not a strategy. And finally, do not ignore your own psychology. If you know that you tend to panic during downturns, then maybe you sell a little bit earlier and keep a smaller moonbag. If you know that you always hold on for too long, then maybe you are stricter with your profit taking. There is no single correct approach here. There is only the approach that lets you sleep at night. You see, the reason that I made this video is quite simple. I do not want you to look back on this part of the cycle and say, I sold because I was bored 5 minutes before everything changed. If XRP never reaches those wild targets, it's fine, right? You can protect yourself. You have a plan. You made rational moves, right? But if it does, I want you to at least have given yourself a real chance to benefit from it. So, do not sell XRP until you understand the full picture, the structure on the charts, the psychology of the crowd, the difference between possibility and probability, and most importantly, your own plan.